There's so many newsletters out there, and a lot of people get it wrong. You have to start with...
Alex Lieberman of Morning Brew made a list of the top 10 communities to build online. And number one, the newsletter.
It's something that in hindsight, I was naturally good at growing up.
Were your parents entrepreneurial or?
No, I don't know where that came from. My mom's she says I love money. I love the dollar.
I don't hate money, I'll tell you that.
If you're providing value for the audience, every time that you put out content, they're gonna consume it.
Only once a week?
Once a week. That's all you need. People are busy, bro.
That's the craziest thing I've heard you say so far. I really started to really pick up reading after I read Rick Ross's autobiography, Hurricanes.
Really?
What do you think is the biggest mistake people make with their newsletter? Let's go, baby. It's another episode of the Athletes and Assets podcast. I'm your host, Noah Lack, and I bring on your favorite athletes to chat about a business topic. We're here in Indy, baby, All-Star Weekend with my guy, Malcolm Lemmons, former Niagara basketball star, former professional basketball player, was in Japan, has been in tech, and now runs maybe one of the hottest newsletters out right now, Vetted Sports. Malcolm, thanks for joining the pod, my guy.
My guy.
But what we do is we skip the small talk. You're from DC. What does this mean? Kill Bob Mo.
Where did you learn that from? That's crazy.
I had some DC teammates in prep school. The DC lingo is crazy.
We do. We got a unique lingo, that's for sure.
Explain
Kill Bob.
What is kill Bob, bro? What does that even mean?
It depends on the context, man. But kill just means you can use it kill, that's crazy. Or kill, I'm blown, dang. So it depends on how you say it. Bob is just bro or son. So we use Bob, we use Mo, we use Slim, we use Shorty.
Slim, Shorty.
It just depends, man.
I like Shorty.
DC is unique, man. We definitely got our own language.
And it's different from Baltimore, which is only 40 minutes away.
Yeah. Very different.
You guys aren't I love you too. You don't say it like that. That's Baltimore. But DC is what's up, shorty?
It's two different worlds, man. I'm telling you, even though they're very close.
What part of DC are you from?
So I grew up uptown DC. It was northwest DC. I moved around the city a lot, probably 4 or 5 times growing up. My mom currently lives in southeast DC, but been all over the city, man.
Were you really good at writing since a young age? Or is this something you've developed through your hooping days? Where did you start to get this ability to just, be able to write with clarity or have an interest in writing?
I think it's something that in hindsight I was naturally good at growing up. I think English was my best subject in school.
Yeah.
I always was never the most talkative kid, but I could express myself through pen and paper.
Yeah.
So I did that naturally, and I think as I got older, transitioned out of basketball, got into the business world, it was more of something that was a God-given ability that I honed to be a talent and a skill.
Yeah.
And that was just through practice, being able to put my thoughts out through blog posts or books that I published and stuff like that. So it's something that just came to me.
How old were you when you published your first blog?
First blog? Maybe around 23 or 24.
Okay, so this is not AAU days.
Nah.
Imagine you were playing for Boo Williams and your homies were what the hell is this blog, bro?
Yeah,
what are you?
I would have got roasted for sure. But you know what? I always had an entrepreneurial mindset growing up. So outside of basketball, I naturally hustled. Middle school, I sold candy. I would flip my juice boxes, Capri Suns, I would sell them at lunch and stuff like that. High school, I flipped shoes, I sold t-shirts. So I always had this business mindset. That was something I think was naturally in my DNA as well growing up.
Really? Were your parents entrepreneurial or?
No.
Okay.
Nobody in my family, actually. So I don't know where that came from. My mom's she says I love money. And that's true. I love the dollar.
I don't hate money. I'll tell you that. I wouldn't mind more money.
I'm telling you, we all can use that.
But, it's I think reading and writing go hand in hand. Bro, for the longest time, I'm the first one to admit it, I've never liked reading that much. But I think reading helps you become a great writer. Did you read a lot? Or was it just something you just started putting pen to paper or talk about that relationship you've had with the reading and the writing, when.
I didn't read growing up almost at all. I hated reading. I hated school. I hated doing book reports. It was something.
Man.
Hey, look,
my man,
I didn't really like
you're normal.
school. I think as I got older, it was this thought of like some of the smartest people in the world took their time and their life experiences and put them in this book, in this thing that you can read and you can really gain knowledge and education as to how they did something. And I knew I'm always interested in learning. Like I'm curious about the world, and so I started reading more when I was overseas and had the time to do so. Off the court, obviously, like you go to practice, maybe have treatment, and then you have the rest of the day to either explore the city or chill in your apartment, whatever. And so I took a lot of time while I was overseas to really start diving into different books that I think help self-educate me about business, about self-improvement and stuff that I was deeply interested in. So that's when it really started for me.
Do you have a book you remember early on that you read that you liked? I got a good one for you, but I need to hear yours first.
I think the first business book I ever read was Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which is pretty cliche. But I think that was the first one, and The Richest Man in Babylon.
For those that don't know Rich Dad, Poor Dad, can you give like a 1 cent synopsis or 2 cent? Like what's that book
about? It's all about like assets and liabilities, more or less. Like he's just talking about how his rich dad invested in assets and his poor dad had liabilities. So pretty much the breakdown of the book. How to Win Friends and Influence People was another book that had a really big impact on me as well when I was starting to get into business. Because business and a lot of life is about relationships, how you treat people, whether people like you or not or want to work with you. So that book had a really big impact on me as well.
Okay. So this is not one of the first books I've read, but I really started to really pick up reading after I read Rick Ross's autobiography, Hurricanes.
Really? I haven't read it.
He didn't write the book. I think it was my understanding he sat there while someone wrote it for him.
Yeah, ghostwriter. Mm-hmm.
But it was a really good book. And I've always loved listening to Rick Ross. Like that's my guy.
Yeah, Rose.
Shout out Rose. And I was like, okay, this is cool. And then like I started writing a little more because of it. And so yeah, for you, like when did you after hoop, did you ever think like writing could be a full-time profession for you?
At the time, no, I did it because I think I started doing it more because it was, as I said before, like a way of expression. Yeah. I started really writing when I was overseas, as I said before, because I had a lot of time off the court. And, being in your apartment, not really having friends aside from my teammates, not knowing the city, I would spend hours in my room and I kind of go stir crazy a little bit. And I'm like, thinking about my experiences as an athlete, I went through a lot of ups and downs to get to this point. I'm like, how did I get here? And it was really like me more or less journaling. Yeah. So I started like talking about things that I was going through, experiencing overseas, kind of recounting my stories as an athlete, things that I had been through to get to that point. In doing that, when I came back home that season, I started sharing that with other people. They're like, what the hell are you doing overseas?
Yeah.
Like, what are you, outside of playing basketball, like, what are you doing with your time? And I was like, well, I started like creating content, like writing. Yeah. And they're like, well, what are you writing about? And I would share it. People are like, oh, well, you kind of got an interesting story. You went through a lot of trials and tribulations to become a pro athlete. And somebody actually suggested that I become an author. I was like, oh, damn author. Like that.
You could have been Rick Ross's ghostwriter.
I mean, that was something I never thought I would want to do, but it was really like my experiences can really impact another athlete who might go through similar challenges. Yeah. Like we all, like becoming a professional athlete is obviously something a lot of people don't get to experience, and it's very tough to get to that point. But if I can help another athlete understand how to get through certain pitfalls and stuff that I did wrong, then maybe I can help change somebody's life with my story. So that was kind of really the thought process behind that first book. And really how like I started writing more and more and how I saw myself possibly creating somewhat of a career, or at least something that I think could impact somebody else's life with.
Which brings me to the topic of the day, the newsletter.
Yeah.
This is like so important right now. Recently there was a list, I think Alex Lieberman of Morning Brew.
I saw that.
Made a list of the top 10, like in order, pivotal communities to build online. Like which mediums are the best way to monetize, grow an audience. Top 3, online community, YouTube, and number 1, the newsletter.
He got a lot of pushback for that, surprisingly.
Why?
I don't know. I think everybody kind of has their own opinions on what mediums make the most sense. But when I looked at the list, it made a lot of sense to me.
It made a ton of sense to me.
So I didn't know why. Like some people were like, well, it depends on what you like determine to be valuable.
I don't know what online community means. Like, is that a Discord channel? Like, I don't.
Or a circle group or Telegram. I think that's what he meant in that context. Okay. But I agree with the list. Like I thought it was spot on.
And so you had you started the Hype Report, now Vetted Sports.
Yep.
Man, there are so many ways we can go here, but why do you think the newsletter is such an effective tool to get news or your message across?
Brevity, as we talked about off camera a little bit, is like you can really narrow down what you're trying to say in a succinct way that it is digestible, easily digestible for your audience. I think that's one reason why newsletters are very valuable, but also the ownership of it. Like you have a direct connection with your audience as opposed to like social media where, we talk about algorithms these days. Like you can't really control who sees the content.
Yeah.
So newsletter has that stickiness to it. And you can really have that direct connection with your audience or your following to where if you want to sell a product or get something in their face, it's much easier to do so with a newsletter or email list than it is just posting on social media.
And it's like the email, if you have email, you can't avoid it. You look at it like you have to.
I look at my email like 20 times a day.
It's part of your job. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm so bullish on the newsletter. In fact, like, I will say this here on camera, like, if I could go back and do this thing over again, I would actually try to be great at the newsletter first before the podcast because of the conversion. Now, the podcast is so much fun. And I love doing this.
Yeah, this is great.
It's a lot of fun. So it's like, to tell you the truth, I go back and forth. But the newsletter, being able to convert people in a quick, fast way, you've already put the subscription tier on your stuff. But like, I want to hear from Malcolm Lemmons, how do you build an incredible newsletter 101?
The basics. There's so many newsletters out there, first and foremost, and a lot of people get it wrong. You have to start with thinking about differentiation. What are you creating that someone is going to get value from, and that's not like other things that are already out there. So I think for me, I picked a niche where there are other people talking about sports tech, but I could kind of create a newsletter that was more curated. As I said before, easily digestible. You could just skim it, get what you want from it, and go about your day. It doesn't take a lot of time, and I'm saving people time. So what is the value add? Why would people want to read this newsletter? What are they getting from the newsletter at the end of the day? So that's the thinking process you have to start with, and then from there, it's just being consistent. Like a lot of people quit, as you know, like podcasts. I don't know the statistic, but like most people don't make it.
I can talk about it. Thank you for bringing that up, man. It is like most podcasters fall off at 99%, like over 90%.
Yeah.
Be conservative, fall off before 100. Mm-hmm. I'm still not at 100 yet. Once I'm at 100, I'm in a class of my own. Once I'm at 200, then it's like rare air. It's funny how it's like that.
It's the same thing with newsletters, man. Like people start them all the time. I've had people reach out to me like, hey, I'm thinking about starting this newsletter. Or since I use Beehive, I get a lot of requests from other newsletters in the space to like promote mine. And I'll look at theirs and they're like, it's like so sporadic. Like they'll do one and then a month later, so like the cadence is off, then they quit.
Last newsletter was 2022. Hey Malcolm, can you give me a boost, brother? Like
you wasn't serious about this shit in the first place.
Yeah.
So like you have to be consistent, man. Your audience has to know when to expect that you're going to show up, and in order to build that trust, you have to show up.
What's your cadence?
Once a week, every Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Eastern time.
Only once a week?
Once a week. That's all you need. People are busy, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I don't need to be in your face every single day. Like, I get there's Morning Brew and you have The Hustle and those type of newsletters.
And athletes and assets.
I mean, there's definitely a space for it. But I think for what I'm doing, the audience that I'm trying to reach, knowing that audience, understanding what they want, I just need to be there once a week, and they have to come to expect that I'm going to show up on Sundays.
Wow, man. Because I'm like, that's the craziest thing I've heard you say so far, because I keep seeing your shit so much on LinkedIn that I'm like, oh, this guy's like.
Oh, well, LinkedIn, I'm daily with that. LinkedIn, I'm daily.
Okay, well, let's get back to that, because that's a whole another thing. But yeah, I've heard twice a week, 3 times a week. You're doing it once a week. Mm-hmm. I thought you were doing it multiple times a week. That is fascinating to me. You are like quality over volume.
Exactly. And as I said before, like it works for the audience that I'm targeting. And I think I could do more times a week. I could do it, but I don't need to do it. So
do you feel like if you did it more times a week, you'd lose subs? Because people are like, man, too much spam. Is that ever a thought? I feel like that's something I think about. Like, how many times should I really be in your inbox a week?
I think churn is definitely a consideration. I think at the end of the day, if you're providing value for the audience, every time that you put out content, they're gonna consume it.
Okay.
So you have to make sure, like, if you're going to do multiple,
calories.
you can't do it. And so since I'm more curation based, as opposed to like putting out a thought piece, once a week works way better than me trying to put out a curation newsletter in a smaller niche. Like if I was covering business, that would have a more, like it would probably make more sense to do daily, because business moves very fast, whereas sports tech moves fast as well, but it's much more niche, and I can still get out relevant news at the end of the week for the audience.
Yeah, and are you on Beehive?
I am on Beehive.
Okay,
yeah.
Are you the premium?
I do.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on the freemium right now. It's like, man, my shit. If I want my deck rated more, I might have to pay the cost to be the boss.
That $99, man. It's
how much is it again?
$99 a month.
$99 a month.
I think so. I get value from it. I like the features that Beehive provides, and I think for what I'm building.
Come on, Tyler, $99 a month, brother. Like help a startup out. Like
I get it, Tyler, man. They're doing a great job, and they're
I do like their analytics, like how it's easy to see it.
Exactly. So it's a business expense, man. At the end of the day, that I'm willing to pay.
Yeah, that's a lot. I was stuck on the 99, man. Sorry. Okay, yeah, because I see yours is decked out. It's very clean. How many words are you aiming to not go over per newsletter? Or are you like Rick Rubin, where you're just like, I'm making it for me, not the audience?
First of all, Rick Rubin, I didn't necessarily agree with what he said. But we don't go over 1,500 words on any newsletter. So it's pretty much between 1,000 and 1,500, depending on how many clips or like pieces, like segments we put in each portion of the newsletter. But it'll never be more than 1,500 words.
Yeah. Okay. So then, wow, man. And diving really deep into like the visual aspect of the newsletter, I really like the Morning Brew style, where you have a bunch of squares, like blocks, and in each block of the newsletter, there's maybe a picture, a couple words, maybe 1 or 2 hyperlinks, but like it feels very clean.
Yep.
Like, do you have your own newsletter? Like, how would you describe your newsletter style, your aesthetic?
Ironically, I took inspiration from Morning Brew.
I think literally everyone.
It is beautiful, though.
It is. It's a nice, like, written aesthetic.
Everything from like the smaller headline to like the bigger headline of like what's going on, to like the breakdown of the segment. Like the way they've done it and kind of innovated, I think is spot on, and a lot of people have kind of built their newsletter, their style around that for sure.
Yeah, it's like,
I mean, it works. If it's not broke, don't try to fix it.
No, I definitely going to stick to that. Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate the newsletter aspect of it, but if you write a great newsletter and no one reads it, did you really write a newsletter? Distribution, man. This is something I am also very excited to chat with you about, because I've seen different strategies from presenting newsletter awareness. I would, as much as you're willing to share, I'd love for you to chat about your conversion funnel. One thing we talked about a couple minutes ago was posting on LinkedIn every day. Mm-hmm. Has it helped you?
Absolutely. Okay. That's where majority of, besides other recommendations on Beehive, LinkedIn is definitely the best converting platform for the newsletter by far. And that's because I'm consistent. Like I said before, like every single day I'm putting out something, whether it's sports related, like something about an athlete. I did a post on Pat Mahomes, I think right after the Super Bowl, which I think went viral because it was timely, but also very interesting in terms of like posting his business deals, the teams that he's invested in. So if it's something sports related that I can post that's timely, that can gain a lot of traction, and then throw in the newsletter in the comment section, that's usually how I can get a lot of subscribers.
Damn, you don't even put the newsletter in the main post. You throw it in the comment section.
Throw it in the comments.
You're like, you're going to like this post so much, you're going to want to read the comments, and my shit is right there. Do you know the utter confidence to have, like, to just put it, not even put it in the main post?
I mean, at the end of the day, man, the newsletter is free. So it's not like I'm asking you to pay for something. Like, if you're interested in what I'm posting here, you liked it, and you look at the comments and be like, you want more of the similar information, sign up.
LinkedIn can be explosive, man. I had my first viral post a couple days ago. I posted a market map.
What was the number? Oh, I did see that. That was fire. Did you do that yourself?
I had the help of a graphic designer, but
that was clean.
That whole work was me.
That was solid, bro.
Thank you, bro. I wouldn't do that with any other sports league because NBA is the smallest one. Yeah. My brother, it took me a long time to that was like, I haven't slept much this week. Like, let me put it like that. That took a while. But man, it's explosive.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of LinkedIn spam. There's a lot of LinkedIn BS. But I think like if you're, and this sounds very cookie cutter, but if you're really getting to the point early on the values part, like you'll have some cheerleaders you even know we're still on the platform. You're like, damn, like where do they come from? Reposting my post.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I've had numerous posts go viral on LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is one of the only platforms nowadays where you can post something organically and it can, like, you can get 6,000. Like I think I posted something about Andre Iguodala when he first retired and launched his fund Mosaic.
Yeah.
I think that got like 7,000, 8,000 likes and like 500-600 comments.
8,000 likes?
Oh, it went crazy. That was my most viral post on LinkedIn.
Wow.
Yeah.
That means your impressions had to be over half a million. Over 500,000.
Yeah.
At least. Mm-hmm. If I'm doing my ratios correctly, but wow, that's a lot.
Yeah. So like LinkedIn, I think is one of the last platforms where you can really do that.
The last frontier.
Yeah, until we get another social media platform.
Some Web3 social platform, man. Newsletter, blockchain, social app.
It's already overwhelming enough.
I know. There's so much like crap out there. It's ridiculous. Talk about your growth of your subscribers. Like, have you seen it? I feel like without knowing anything, I haven't asked you off air, but like, how's your growth curve look the past couple months?
It's slowly growing. It's I'll be honest with you, it's growing a lot slower than I expected. But
interesting.
But I've always been more focused on quality of subscriber than the subscriber count. So
you want the right person subscribing.
Exactly. And a lot of the people who read Vetted Sports Weekly are sports tech investors, sports tech founders, executive in the sports space, a couple of owners. Those people are worth their weight in gold. So I would much rather have that than the casual sports fan. Not that it doesn't matter, but it doesn't really work for what I'm building. And so the metrics of like number of subscribers don't matter as much as click-through rate.
Yeah.
Which is like paramount for us. Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Are people engaging? Are people actually interested in opening up our newsletter and clicking on something?
In your words, explain click-through rate.
So I don't really know analytically how they track it, but essentially it means like somebody is opening up your newsletter, finding a link within the newsletter, and clicking on that link.
Which is important if you want to sell a sponsorship or something, because It shows that people are actually engaging with the post. It's hard to analyze just like scrolling up and reading, but if I'm clicking on a link in your newsletter and we're tracking that, that is a huge data point.
Exactly. And I think I've done advertisements and sponsorships in the past, but that's not something that I'm looking to be the number one driver for monetization for the platform as a whole. But it's still something that matters in terms of like, I know people are actually interested in this and are getting value from it.
Sure, it's a way to see if people like what you're putting out.
Exactly.
I'm glad you brought up the not all audience members are the same, because feel very strongly about this. I want to give a shout out, Matt Brown at Extra Points. Have you ever read the Extra Points newsletter? It is like,
I'm familiar with it. I haven't read it, but I know what it is.
One of the top like college sports business newsletters, and I think Matt has around 600 or so private tiered subscribers, where they're paying like an extra tier for the content. Now, 600 doesn't seem like a lot, but they're all athletic directors.
Yeah, that's major.
Powerful, man.
Absolutely,
super powerful. So I see the parallel with your base.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think for, as I said before, like I'm trying to target sports tech founders and investors, and even launching like the membership group that I'm preparing to launch, like that is the focal point. So I'm not worried about the numbers. I'm not worried about the random fan who might be subscribed to the newsletter. I'm like, are the people who I'm targeting going to convert to be an actual paid member and invested in the membership product, which is like going to be the holy grail for the platform?
So that brings me to another point. Like, how do you go about monetizing your newsletter? Is it a medium for something else, or like what? How do you think about that?
So when I first started, as you talked about before, like when it was the Hype Report, it was consulting. So I would work with different startups in terms of growth, helping them with their content strategy, marketing, things of that nature. I pivoted away from that, and now I did start doing a little bit of sponsorships and advertisement. That's not the game I want to play, and I think it would be much harder to build a sustainable model because I don't publish daily. So we do have a web-based platform, and the goal with really all of this is to create a membership product where we bring in sports tech founders and provide a community for them.
Yeah.
We give them more like access to deep dive reports on different trends that are happening in the industry.
Wow.
Providing partnership discounts. So we partner with different events and other companies in the space to provide discounts for that community as well. Then we're going to have like live calls, so they'll be able to do Q&As and talk to different business leaders in the sports space where they wouldn't have been able to connect with these people otherwise. So that membership is in the process of being launched in the next couple of probably next month or so. Putting the pieces together now.
So have you been keeping food on the table until then?
Man, I save money, bro.
Yeah.
I live very lean.
Okay.
So that's financial management is part of being entrepreneurs, like knowing when to spend dollars, knowing where to spend dollars. So
you're in Miami. Flashy, high-profile place, man. How do you keep yourself out of live?
I stay out of live.
Okay.
I stay out of the streets.
Okay, you're out of the streets.
Yeah.
Okay.
I stay out of the streets, man.
Okay.
Because Miami is a dangerous place.
Very dangerous.
But there's a lot of ambitious go-getters down there as well. So it's also about like you can be in that environment, but who you decide to associate with is equally as important.
It's a little off topic here. Can you talk to me about your filtration process between a scammer and someone actually building something in Miami?
I don't think I figured it out yet. Like honestly, bro, like there's a lot of posers down there too, but I think in the sports community, like you can't hide. Like we know who you are.
Okay.
We know who you are.
Too.
We'll find you. Find
Okay.
you. So, but yeah, no, like the sports tech ecosystem is really strong down there. Sports community as a whole. Obviously, you got Messi down there. The Heat are doing well.
Yeah.
The Dolphins had a solid season. So, convergence of sports in Miami, it's a great place to be in the industry for sure.
Absolutely. What do you think? What do you think is the biggest mistake people make with their newsletter?
Now focusing on the audience first. They're thinking about how they can extract as opposed to how they can give. So I think the value add, the thinking process with starting a newsletter has to be, how can I differentiate myself enough to somebody's going to consistently get value out of this however many times a week I do it.
Yeah.
Audience first, anything you do. That's not just in newsletters, but that's in business. Think about the people that you're trying to serve. Always be of service first.
I'm seeing this in a lot of tech companies. They like what you're doing. The newsletter is not just it's just the only thing. It's the medium to push towards the product or whatever else you're looking to build. And I think it's a great way to tell that story. And once again, give a lot, especially when you have something else that you're working on, and you're just giving and giving. I think it's just a great way to drive customers and fans and people in. I think more pro athletes should have their own newsletter, and just give quick updates. Like, hey, it's LeBron here. We got a 2-week road trip. here drinking my coffee here at the Ritz-Carlton penthouse, about to go to the game. Like, I don't know. Like, rough example, but, you know, I think there's some alpha there.
I definitely think it could be feasible. A lot of athletes use Twitter for stuff like that.
Yeah.
But to your point, like, you think about how athletes have their own merchandise lines or products that they're trying to sell. I think about like Jimmy Butler, for example, with Big Face Coffee. Like being able to have that, as I said before, direct connection with the audience, being like, hey, like we're doing a pop-up in like South Beach, Miami, come through, like being able to get that out through a newsletter is probably better than trying to do it through Twitter, even though they probably still can gain a lot of traction. But I think, like, to your point, there's that going back to that stickiness and that personalized feeling that you get with the email newsletter, that might be a good opportunity for some athletes, for sure. 5
years from now, where's Vetted Sports?
We are the premier sports tech platform in all of the sports business world. So founders, investors come to us for insights, communities, events, and everything sports technology.
You heard it from the man himself, Malcolm Lemmons, former professional basketball player, joining us to chat about how to build a nationally recognized newsletter. I'm your host, Noah Lack, host of the Athletes and Assets podcast. I bring on some of your favorite athletes to chat about a business topic. Malcolm, was a blast, brother.
My God, appreciate you.
Just gave a lot of game there.
I hope so.
Because newsletters are high. That was a lot of free game. We might have to get them to sub just for this episode for them to get that game.
I hope they do, man. That's the goal.
Yeah. No, please subscribe to the podcast. Like, subscribe. Thank you, guys.